How's it going, you guys? So in this video, I'm going to be talking about sports performance on a ketogenic diet, why I personally follow a ketogenic diet in order to boost sports performance, and why, and some of the most common problems that athletes might have on ketogenic diets and how to solve them. So, I've been following a ketogenic diet for over a year now. Just recently I took like a 3-week break, because it's a new year right now and I wanted to see how carbohydrates would, affect my performance. I actually found zero improvement in my sports performance, and I only found problems from it actually. And I found that a properly formulated ketogenic diet rules all as far as sports performance. I'm a competitive kickboxer, and I also train MMA athletes, and I also do heavy powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting on the side. So I'm doing a lot of conditioning and stuff like that, and a lot of sparring rounds and whatnot. And one thing I can tell you for sure is if you are cycling in and out of ketosis, you're going to experience fatigue, you're going to experience low cardiovascular endurance and stamina. You're going to notice your sports performance go down because you're constantly changing the energy sources that your body uses, and so your body can't adapt to one or the other. And so when you go for exercise, essentially your body's confused, doesn't know if you're burning carbs or you're burning ketones or fuel. And actually, in a ketogenic state, your body actually still produces glucose, but it produces it within its body, endogenously, from the conversion of free fatty acids and triglycerides, okay? So your body, and then of course amino acids, but that's only if you're calorically restricting. That's one of the most common misconceptions about ketogenic diets, is that your body can either burn ketones or glucose. And when you're on a ketogenic diet, you're not producing enough glucose for glycogen. And, glycogen is a main source of fuel for exercise, blah, blah, blah. Look, people who say that ketogenic diets are bad because they don't allow your body, they don't refill glycogen, don't fucking know jack fucking shit about ketogenic metabolism and how the body produces energy for fuel, okay? Your body does in fact produce glucose and glycogen from the conversion of fat. It legitimately produces glucose. It converts fat into fuel. The glycerol backbone of triglycerides and free fatty acids, both from dietary fat and from your own body fat, is used to refill glycogen. But it's a demand-driven process. So every time you hit the gym and you go hardcore and you kill your glycogen stores, your body will refuel glycogen. And there's been studies that have shown typically overnight, your body completely refills its glycogen stores simply from converting free fatty acids and, if it needs to, amino acids and the glycerol backbone of triglycerides into glycogen. There actually have been quite a few studies now comparing keto-adapted athletes to high-carb athletes, okay? Elite athletes, by the way, not untrained people. And obviously marathon runners, are going to see the biggest benefit. But in particular, the FASTER study by Jeff Volok and Stephen Finney, they took keto-adapted elite marathon runners, and then they took carb-adapted marathon runners, and they actually tested their glycogen over the course of the day, over the course of the workout, and then hours after the workout. And what they found is, obviously, even though they're marathon runners, they still burn through glycogen within the first hour or so of exercise. And what they found is the carb-adapted athletes, the keto-adapted athletes performed just as good as the carb-adapted athletes. And they actually found that keto-adapted athletes refilled glycogen faster than the carb-adapted athletes, surprisingly enough. So the keto-adapted elite marathon runners refill glycogen faster than the carb-adapted marathon runners. And so that is faster recovery from exercise, which is actually a benefit that most people feel when they're actually following the ketogenic diet in a proper way for sports performance. And that's typically why people don't experience these benefits, because they're not eating enough fat, not eating enough protein, not getting enough sodium, and not getting enough calories in general, okay? Especially the guys, there's a bodybuilder recently who, I think his name is Jason Whitreck or something, and he switched to a high-carb diet recently, claiming that he's finally making gains after all this time on a ketogenic diet. He wasn't making gains, and now he is because he's eating high-carb, but he admits that he doesn't track anything ever, and so he doesn't really know how much calories he's getting, and I guess he's not tracking his caloric expenditure like I was for my entire year on a ketogenic diet. And that's very important for any diet, but especially a ketogenic diet is, so if you are restricting carbohydrates and you're not getting enough fat to sustain caloric energy expenditure, or enough protein especially. Most people on a ketogenic diet don't eat enough protein because they think that they have to restrict protein in order to stay in ketosis and all this stuff. And to an extent that's true, but it's the amount of protein restriction that you go towards that can be either beneficial or they can be a hindrance. And so typically, people who switch from a ketogenic diet to a carnivore diet, for example, carnivore diet is basically no carbs, but you also don't restrict protein. Keto diet is no carbs, but you do restrict protein. So people on a carnivore diet, they experience increased sports performance compared to when they were on keto. That's probably because they're not restricting protein anymore. People restrict protein to ridiculous amounts, and it's on keto, and it's no wonder why they can't perform and why they don't have energy and why they feel like crap. And so you need to be getting at least 1 gram of protein per pound of lean mass per day. You can even go up as far as 1.2 grams per pound of lean mass per day. All right, and I've done experiments where I've done 3 pounds of meat a day, where I'm getting probably about 1.5 grams per pound of lean mass. And I've actually noticed a dose-dependent improvement in my performance and my feelings of well-being from protein. But it might not be necessary to buy all that meat and eat all that meat in a day. But regardless, that's one of the most common problems people have, is that they don't eat enough protein. The second problem is that they don't get enough fat. So if you've tried eating more protein, okay, and you haven't noticed a difference, or maybe, you should try eating more protein for about 2 weeks to see if you notice any difference in your energy levels, if you're getting stronger or not, if you're hitting a plateau. And if you're not following a properly structured strength program to gauge your recovery, then you shouldn't even be watching this video. You better be having proper instruction, be following a certain program for your sport and a certain strength and conditioning program, so you are actually measuring your success instead of just guessing, oh, my performance went down, blah, blah, blah. People typically they stop training hard because of a placebo, because they think, oh, I'm not eating carbs anymore, so I should probably not train as hard. And then they wonder why they lose performance. Well, look, if you're not lifting as heavy as you used to, or if you're not training as hard as you used to, then your body's not going to be, adapting to those higher demands, and so you're going to get weaker if you don't train as hard anymore. But there's that. And then make sure you're eating enough protein. Try it out for 2 weeks. The second thing is getting enough fat. So if you try the protein for 2 weeks, now try fat. Typically, what people find is if they eat at least twice the amount of fat in grams that they eat for protein, they feel a lot better. Okay, people feel a lot better. Okay, so we're not talking calories, we're not talking percentages of calories, 70% of your calories from fat, blah, blah, blah. No, we're talking grams, okay? We're being more specific because we're addressing a specific metabolic function that we want results in. And so you need 1 gram of protein per pound of lean mass, and then try 2 grams of fat per pound of lean mass. So if you have 160 pounds of lean mass, then that means 160 grams of protein minimum and approximately 320 grams of fat. And keep in mind there's about 9 calories per gram of fat. So you will most likely be getting all the calories you need to sustain performance. You should probably look into a Whoop real-time heart rate monitor that tracks your heart rate variability and your recovery. And it also tracks your caloric expenditure based on your heart rate, so that you can have a more accurate idea of how much calories you're expending throughout the day. So you can optimize recovery and make sure you're getting at least more calories than you're burning, so that you can make sure that it's not carbs that are limiting your performance. That's the key. Is people, they don't eat enough calories, they don't eat enough fat, they don't even track these things, they don't track their caloric expenditure, they just use like online macro counters and stuff. And so they don't know how much calories they're burning, they don't know how much food they need to eat, they're just like using these calculators and things, taking a wild guess. And it's no surprise that they start to lose muscle mass or lose performance. I took a body fat scan before and after keto, and I found that I maintained the same amount of lean mass and I lost 8 pounds of body fat without even really doing as much strength training as before. So, and I actually started eating even more calories, and so I still lost 8 pounds of lean mass, 8 pounds of fat mass, and maintained the same amount of lean mass. So anyway, there's that. Next thing, so you need to be tracking. That's what I was doing, tracking everything. Next thing is sodium. So, if you're not getting the minimum required amount of sodium, especially for athletes, so as a baseline rule of thumb, for someone who's eating a standard American diet, you need at least 3 grams, about 3 grams of sodium, not salt, 3 grams of sodium. That's about 1.5 tablespoons of salt a day, just for basic health. Okay, that's a minimum requirement for sodium intake. And then when you cut out processed foods, you're going to have to get that from added salt, because there's really no sodium in most fruits, vegetables, plain nuts and seeds. There's really not much sodium in meat or anything like that. It's mostly in processed foods. So if you're not supplementing sodium on a whole foods diet, you're probably getting you'd be lucky to even get 1 gram of sodium a day. And so that can set you up for low blood pressure, heart problems, dizziness, low energy and fatigue, constipation, sleep problems. All sorts of problems can come about from not getting enough salt each day. And when you're on a ketogenic diet, your need for salt increases by double at least. So especially if you're an athlete, if you're not getting at least 2 tablespoons of sodium a day, and you're wondering why your performance is going down, why your energy is going down, why you have bowel movement problems, sleep problems, why you feel, oh, my cortisol is increasing, it's a sodium deficiency. You need enough sodium to maintain proper levels of aldosterone and diuretic secreting hormone, antidiuretic hormone, Your hormones will become imbalanced without enough sodium, okay? And your hormones will become imbalanced. There's been cases of people who have low testosterone because they don't eat enough fat on a ketogenic diet. And the same thing goes for chronic caloric restriction in general for a regular diet too. Even though you're burning fat for fuel, it's still a good idea to be supporting your body with the nutrients it needs. And so that means getting enough fat, getting enough protein, getting enough sodium. And then beyond that, some people experience strong benefits from, extra electrolyte supplementation. So things like potassium, you can get new salt, which is just pure potassium citrate, or low salt, which is a mix of sodium, potassium, and also a little bit of magnesium, but not enough to really make a huge difference. So adding a little bit of potassium, my own recommendations for potassium and sodium have changed a lot over the last couple of years, or last couple of months, but experiment with potassium and definitely up your sodium if you're not already and you're feeling like you're losing performance. Next thing you want to make sure, magnesium. Try magnesium. Try a full spectrum magnesium, calcium, vitamin D, vitamin K2 supplement, okay? I have one, it's from a brand called MRM, and it's about $7 for 30 servings, and it has magnesium, calcium, vitamin D, K2, phosphorus, all of the minerals that you need to support bone health, but also just electrolyte balance in general. Only thing it's missing is boron and vitamin A, but you can supplement those. You can use liver and bone broth if you really want, and then start chewing on bones. Try bone meal for calcium and boron, and that's a really good idea. You could try MCT oils pre-workout, try coconut oil pre-workout. A really good book on ketone metabolism in general, and also coconut oil and MCTs is The Complete Book of Ketones. This is just good for general reading for anyone who's following a ketogenic diet. It has a main focus in just ketone metabolism, exogenous ketones, and mental health resulting from ketogenic diets and nutritional ketosis. This is a pretty good book just to get your basic understanding of ketones in general, but not necessarily ketogenic diets, I'd say, but it's still a good read and worth the money. For people who are athletes on a ketogenic diet or a low-carb diet in general, this is your Bible. This is a book you must buy. Jeff Volok, PhD, registered dietitian, Stephen Finney, medical doctor, PhD. These two guys are the leading researchers in ketogenic diets and performance. They're the pioneers. They're the ones who did the vast majority of studies on keto-adapted athletes, because before all we had was people who were adapted to a high-carb diet who would switch over to a low-carb diet for 4 weeks. And obviously in the first 4 weeks of a ketogenic diet, you're going to be feeling like, your performance is not going to be good until you've adapted. And so these guys actually did some of the first studies on athletes that were adapted to a ketogenic diet, which is why I recommend this book so much, and I've read it multiple times. It talks about a lot of the mechanisms within your body that provide benefits for health and exercise performance in general. It highlights a lot of their own research in the lab with real people. And it has general guidelines for athletes, and it has plenty of references to help back up their claims and why you should be doing all the things that they do. So especially if you're new to the ketogenic diet in regards to athletic performance, even if you've been on a ketogenic diet forever, if you've not read this book, there's a lot of information you're missing. I can't even begin to explain how many times I've seen people claim, they probably aren't though, they claim that they've been on a keto diet or a carnivore diet for 4 years, and they found that they have to have carbs in order to perform, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, they're admitting, they're saying that they've only been able to go 2 weeks without carbs, so they're not even keto adapted. And they don't supplement sodium, or protein will kick them out of ketosis. Well, this book is a mother load of ketogenic books for athletic performance. Now, one thing I will say is this book and many other books will mention protein restriction increases blood ketones, But if your goal is athletic performance, you should probably measure ketones, just blood ketones, the blood ketone monitor in the first 3 months. But after a while, you should experiment with higher protein. And if you have lower blood ketones, don't worry about it for maybe 4 to 8 weeks after you're keto adapted. See if you get any performance benefits from eating even higher protein. So something like 1.5 grams per pound of lean mass, and then still eating a similar amount of fat as you were before. That would be another recommendation. So yeah, overall, my recommendation, read this book. Don't change your strength program. Don't change your athletic program. Keep training hard despite the lack of carbs. Maybe lower the volume a little bit at first, but keep the intensity higher. Try more protein, try more fat, track your calories, track your fat. Make sure you're getting twice the amount of fat grams as protein. Make sure that you're getting as many calories as you're burning or more. Get sodium, get magnesium, experiment with different electrolytes, but especially take sodium. Try, beef suet, pork suet, butter, rendered fat, coconut oil, MCT oil. Try MCT oil before workouts. Try intermittent fasting after a while. See if maybe it's a digestive thing. 18 to 6 intermittent fasting seems to be a sweet spot for a lot of people. 1 meal a day, you might not get enough calories. And yeah, post your experiences, your questions, and your comments down below. Appreciate the conversation. Talk to you guys next time.